Hello and welcome back to the Little Black Cat Knits podcast, a podcast about knitting, crochet, cross stitch, sewing, and basically any kind of crafting I find myself involved in at the moment. I'm your host, Ashley, coming at you from New Jersey, where I live with my husband, my two sons, and my little black cat. You can find me on Instagram and Etsy as Gatti Yarn Co. I am also the dyer behind Gatti Yarn Co. And you can find me on Ravelry as AM Gatti, and you can find the group on Ravelry for this podcast if you search for the Little Black Cat Knits podcast. Today is Monday, February 3rd, 2020, and it has been a very long time since I last podcasted. I think last time I podcasted, I was still pregnant, and now my son is almost 7 months old. So that should tell you how long it's been. But yeah, it's been a while. So forgive me if I'm a little rusty. And if things are a little wonky for a minute here. But that all being said, let's jump right into all the crafty content. It's pretty much all just knitting and crochet this episode, with like one sewing thing. One. But let's get going and jump into some FOs, where I've got my show notes. So let's see. The first FO I have to talk about is, and forgive me, I have yet to invest in sock blockers, but it is a pair of socks. These are just a pair of vanilla socks, 72 stitch count with a slip stitch heel, flap, and gusset. I knit these on a size US 1 2.25 millimeter 9-inch circular needle. It's pretty much how I love to knit all of my socks. And the colorway is, well, this is Loops and Threads Perfect Pair in the Secret Garden colorway. I know the lighting kind of sucks. I tried filming a little bit earlier, but then my camera died, and the lighting in my bedroom is not the best. I apologize for that. So we're gonna make do. Hopefully next time I film it won't be so dark in here, or I can like figure out the light situation. I'm actually wondering if I close the blinds and like close out the natural light, if like that'll be better. We'll see. I might try that in a minute. But moving on to the next FO I have, which is a corner to corner crochet blanket that I crocheted for my older son, Bruce. It's very big. If I open it up, it will cover the entire screen. But I crocheted this with a 5mm hook, and I used 2 1/4 Karen Big Cakes in the Cookie Crumble colorway. He wanted a blanket, so that's what I did for him there. And the only other FO I have is sewing, technically, but I'll show that now. And it is a needle roll. My DPNs were getting out of control, and I couldn't fit them in anything anymore, so I just looked for a YouTube tutorial on how to make one, and found this one on how to make one out of 2 fat quarters. So I dove into my Harry Potter fabric stash and, you know, whipped one up because I couldn't take it anymore. My DPNs were, nothing was together. I couldn't find anything. It was like I was using my needle, like my needle gauge every 5 minutes, trying to figure out if my DPNs were the right size. So this was much needed. I will link the tutorial I used in the show notes, but I believe it was a tutorial by Melanie Ham on YouTube. But once I find it, I'll be sure to link it in the show notes. So that is all my FOs. It's been a really long time since I podcasted, and I know I've have other FOs, but it's been so long that I couldn't even tell you like what was finished and what wasn't since the last time I podcasted. So I figured let's just start fresh with the FOs that I have right now. And this lighting is driving me nuts, so I'm gonna try to fix it. Okay, I'm back. Tried to fix the lighting, realized it made it worse. I'm not really sure how to make it better. So I think I'm just gonna have to really try to tweak this in editing, and then next week film earlier, make sure my camera's charged and film earlier, and get some better lighting. But anyway, moving right along into whips. The first whip I'm going to show you is actually, it has a story and it's kind of combined with an FO. So it'll make sense when I get into it. So I am knitting the Hogwarts A Mini History by Megan Regan, and or you guys may know her as Bad Wolf Girl Sits and Knits. So I knit one for my son a while ago, and the first time I knit it, I used a finger and weight yarn. I used the same needles that the pattern called for, everything, and it was so small. So I ripped back, ended up holding the yarn double and went up a needle size, and then that was this. Now, my son's chest measurement is 21 inches, and the smallest size of this pattern has 26 inches as the chest circumference. So there should have been at least 5 inches of positive ease just in that measurement alone. But the problem is this neck hole is so small, I couldn't get it over his head, and I couldn't get it over my almost 7-month-old's head. I don't know if that was an issue with the yarn or the needles or my gauge, or maybe I read something wrong. I'm not really sure. So now this sweater belongs to Bruce's Build-A-Bear because it does not fit him or Paul. So that being said, Bruce has been begging me for one. He wants one so bad. So I decided to continue following the pattern exactly as it's written, but go up to a worsted weight yarn and use bigger needles. So I am knitting it right now in Loops and Threads Impeccable yarn in the bright, what color is this? Bright sky blue and citron. He wanted blue and green, so that's what he got. And I'm knitting them with a US size 6 and a US size 8. And I also knit the the collar, twice the length it called for in the pattern, because I am planning on folding it over and stitching it down so it's not so wide looking, if that makes any sense. So that is my first whip. It is the Hogwarts A Mini History by Megan Regan, and that is for Bruce because the other one was a big fail and I felt terrible. The next whip I'm going to talk about is one I have on the needles for my husband in this giant bag. Keith has been begging me for a sweater for, oh my god, a long time. I knit him a flax like forever ago, and then through just wear and tear and washing and whatnot, the collar has gotten so stretched out. Did I lose? Oh no. It's okay. This is fixable. We got some drop stitches. But he has been asking me for a sweater for a very long time, and through wash and wear with his flax, for whatever reason, the neckband, like the whole collar area, the whole top of it just stretched out like so much, like it's bad. It's stretched out like a lot. Oh, that's where that stitch marker came from. Right. Crap. Where's my beginning of brown? Hold on. It's right here. Okay. There was a rogue stitch marker earlier, and I could not figure out where it came from. I guess these stitches fell off, and that's where the stitch marker came from. Okay, moving right along. Anyway, so yeah, Keith has been begging me for a sweater since his flax kind of fell apart, and I finally obliged, and I am knitting him the Montrealer by Designs by Dells in Loops and Threads Impeccable in the Orange Crush and Classic Gray colorways. So far I've got the whole body, the pocket in the front, and I am on the first sleeve. This pattern has been so much fun to knit, and I've been loving all the challenges and like new techniques. Like I've never done a provisional cast on before, so that was fun. The pocket, I've never done anything like this before ever. And then once we get to the hood, like that's gonna be something new. There's German short rows in here that I'd never done before. So this has been so much fun. And it looks like a traffic cone. I laugh, I call it a traffic cone sweater because it does. It's like, it is fluorescent. But this actually has been getting most of my love because I feel bad like he wants to wear it, and I'm trying to like really get it done for him like as quickly as possible because I know how badly he wants to wear it because he hasn't had a sweater since the flax has become misshapen. Don't mind me, just have some Dunkin' Donuts iced tea. Moving right along, my next whip is a pair of socks that I've been knitting for myself. These are the 'Twas the Night Before Christmas socks by Danielle George. And you can't really see because the lighting sucks and self-serving yarn, but it's upside down. That's the pattern, the stitch pattern. These socks are beautiful. The pattern is beautiful. I love these socks. These I'm actually knitting them on a US 2.25 millimeter needle, Chiaogu 9-inch circulars as always. I'm doing the 72 stitch count from the pattern. I'm still trying to figure it out. I think it might just be my gauge because sometimes I do 72 stitches and the socks fits great, and sometimes I do it and they're too big. But then there's times when I knit 64 stitch socks and they're like way too small. I don't know. I'm trying to find like my middle ground here. But anyway, these are being knit in Loops and Threads Perfect Pair in the Glory Days colorway. So these have been fun. They've been kind of like my breaking it up and wanting to do something kind of just like mindless knitting, like when I get tired of knitting sleeves, pretty much. So those have been wonderful because I wanted something that was like mindless with like a little bit of intrigue. Like I didn't want another pair of vanilla socks, basically. So that's why I chose those. My next couple whips, got a lot of stuff going on here. Okay, are in this beautiful bag by Lila Styles. I love this bag, is like my favorite thing ever. And these are a pair of socks for Keith because he's always begging me for socks in the Loops and Threads Impeccable Ombre in the rainbow colorway. Keith really like wears down his socks, so I tend to knit his in just like cheap big box yarn because he needs them like washed and dried like constantly, and like they hold up a little bit better, these kind of yarns, I've noticed, just from how much wash and stuff he gets out of them. But for these I basically knit a I follow the rye pattern by Tin Can Knits, but I don't use the garter panel that's in the front. I guess he doesn't really like the garter panel. Alright, now my camera's yelling at me and saying I have 4 minutes left. So I'm gonna like breeze through the next whip I have, and then, I mean, this is the last thing, and then I have one more thing. But I'm also crocheting a corner to corner blanket for my son Paul, and I'm doing the same thing I did for Bruce's blanket. It's just that this one is in the honey glazed colorway, but it's the same thing. Carrying big cakes, I use a 5mm hook, and I just used a tutorial I found on YouTube. I believe it was Jada in Stitches, but I will include that in the show notes. So yeah, that's pretty much all of my whips right now. Anything I've really been actively working on. I'm sure I have more hidden away somewhere. But last but not least, I want to do some stash enhancement. And this came in the mail, and I am so excited. It's the Harry Potter Knitting Magic by Tanis Gray. And guys, I know I can't show you any of the patterns because it's a paid for book, clearly, but this book is just beautiful. I mean, the photography is beautiful, the patterns are beautiful. I mean, guys, who doesn't want to knit a Weasley sweater? I mean, really, come on. And it's official, I mean, Wizarding World Publishing and everything, so I'm really excited to delve into this, but I'm not allowing myself to until I finish pretty much everything that's on my needles. Won't let myself. Plus I have 2 other sweaters to knit for my friend's daughter. They were supposed to be Christmas gifts and I dropped the ball. And then there's a sweater I want to design, which I'll hopefully talk about that more next week if I actually like get around to starting that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If there's, you know, I'm gonna talk a little bit. I only have 2 minutes left according to my camera. So if you just came for crafty content, that is all. Thank you for joining me. And now I'm just gonna talk a little bit about life updates and stuff. So what's been going on since I last podcasted has been, had my baby. And I've just been adjusting to life as a mom of 2, and Bruce started school back in September. He's in preschool, so I've been getting used to that, and it's just pretty much been life. There hasn't really been much going on. Hopefully next week I will have more to talk about in that department too, and hopefully the lighting will be fixed and there will be more FOs and more work on things and more stash enhancement and all that good stuff. So really that chatter was kind of like nothing. But my camera's yelling at me. I think I'm running out of memory on my memory card. So that being said, thank you all for hanging out with me and chatting about knitting and crochet and crafty fun things. And I will see you all in the next podcast. Bye.